Hey, welcome everybody to Getting a Grip on the Michigan Business Network. I am your host, Mike Maddox. I'm so happy that you are spending part of your day with us and that you chose to listen to this program. We try to bring you interesting and relevant topics and very interesting guests, much like my guest today, Pat Van Abel. Pat is an EOS implementer like myself and an entrepreneur with a fascinating background, and we're going to talk about a lot of cool stuff. Pat, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mike. I'm glad to be here.
So it's great to have you. Hey, Pat, we've gotten to know each other a bit through EOS circles, and I was telling you right before we went on the air that your entrepreneurial background is really amazing. Can you share some highlights with the listeners? Like you've done a lot of different things from an entrepreneurial standpoint.
Yeah, absolutely. I honestly think it started in grade school. My mom and dad had a large banquet hall, supper club, and bowling alleys, and we had boxes of candy that we sold at the bowling alleys. And I said to Dad, I said, "Hey, can I take a couple of these boxes to school? And I'm betting I can sell a few of those." So, in my inbox, or some box of some sort. I started selling candy bars in fifth grade. So I got a really young start to it, and we had looked at a bunch of things. Another friend of mine in college, we were going to do some different forms of screen printing stuff, and we wanted to do this crazy ice cream drink. We both had bartended at my mom and dad's banquet hall and supper club. And at the end of these, during the middle of a wedding, people would get done eating and they'd come up to the bar and they'd say, "Hey, we want 4 grasshoppers, 3 pink squirrels, 2 Cadillacs." Those are all frozen ice cream drinks. It's a after dinner drink. And we'd always guess wrong. We'd say, "All right, these guys, we're going to have, we do it by the pitcher." So we'd make pitchers of these ice cream drinks. Some weeks they didn't order any. Other weeks, because the worst thing that would happen, you weren't ready, and they'd come up and order 3 different kinds of ice cream drinks. We had 1 or 2 blenders. We'd say, "Well, we'll see you in 15 minutes." I mean, it was awful. So our idea was to pre-make these frozen ice cream drinks and then throw them into a blender or a microwave. It was kind of the concept of what we were starting to do. So that kind of gets tabled, and I go to the Twin Cities, and I work for the Tandy Corporation, which owned all the Radio Shacks around the world. They had an outbound sales division, and I got a call on a Friday that said I didn't have to come back to work on Monday. None of us did. They shut down the whole B2B part of the Tandy world.
Wow.
So then they went into Radio Shack. So I, licking my wounds, I came back to the Valley and ran into another entrepreneur who was briefly in the Twin Cities with me. And he says, "You know what we should do?" He said, "We should do that." And we had seen a mini golf course on the south side of the Twin Cities that they handed a putter out, and 45 minutes later, they'd charge them $5. And then 45 minutes later, they'd come back and hand you the putter, and they didn't consume anything. And we said, "Well, that we can maybe make that go." So
I love, by the way, the way the entrepreneurial mind works, from candy bars to frozen drinks. Now you're like, hey, wait a minute, there's no consumable here. You're always seeing stuff. That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, we were serial. I know a lot of people use that term. We were serial entrepreneurs. And so we said, let's do that mini golf course thing. And I said, a good friend of mine pitched that idea, said, "I'm in." So as far as being a high fact finder, those out in this world that know the Colby Index, they're going to laugh because we were not high fact finders. Well, let's do it. So we pulled out a bar napkin, and we had our business plan created in probably, I don't know, 3 beers, and we were off to the races. So we literally in 4 or 5 months we're open with this mini golf course.
Wow.
And on a great piece of real estate that was very green, because a big freeway was coming adjacent to it, which we knew, but it was going to be probably a year and a half before that freeway would reach us. And we had our eye on commercial real estate also at that particular time. So that was one of the first things that got us into this. So that was July of 1993, shortly after graduating from UW Oshkosh. I was in the Twin Cities for a cup of coffee, and then we did this mini golf course idea. And then a few years later, we opened up a very similar entity, and this turned into 2 regional family entertainment centers, Appleton, Wisconsin, and then Madison or Middleton, Wisconsin. We did the exact same thing down there. Again, another freeway, which is called their Beltline, around the south side of Madison, was coming back up to the north into Middleton, and we said this would be a great spot. So we actually built both of those facilities, knowing that highest and best use was not what we were building. It was really a way to hold the real estate. And it worked out. So Meriter Hospital bought us out in 2010 out of our Madison operation. So we operated for 10 years, mini golf, batting cages, go-karts. Appleton, we just celebrated our 31st anniversary. Oh, actually, it'll be this year. We'll celebrate 31 years in Appleton. Mini golf, batting cages, go-karts, and then a huge indoor component to it, laser tag. We'd have a pizza kitchen.
Yeah.
We have about 75 or 80 indoor, like video and arcade redemption games.
Yeah.
Mini bowling, laser maze, and inflatables, and then a couple of corporate and birthday party rooms, etc. So it's been a great ride.
That's
So yeah, I mean, I'm
fantastic.
covering a lot on you, but that's a
No,
quick snapshot.
I appreciate that. And as I said, I love the entrepreneurial mind, always looking for new ideas, looking for new opportunity, even to the point where you knew building the Family Fun Center wasn't maybe highest and best use, but you wanted the real estate as an investment. That's a beautiful thing to see in action. Thanks for sharing your story. You operate today an organization called Servant Cultures Consulting. Can you talk about that and tell us what that is?
Yeah, so servant cultures is based on the fundamentals of servant leadership. And on our Appleton Family Fun Center that I just referenced, the grocery store chain that was coming in to backfill our family entertainment center was a group called Festival Foods. They're a privately held Wisconsin-based organization out of La Crosse. I think they have about 40 stores now. And they compete they sit right next to a Walmart, higher end, just fantastic operators. And I got to know the CEO and founder, gentleman by the name of Dave Scogan. And I said, Dave, tell me this. Why does my wife drive by some of your very well-financed, worthy competitors to go pay more for the same peanut butter that they're selling? And their stores are just different. They're brighter, they're shinier, the people smile a little easier, they engage you more frequently. And he said, well, there's a lot of hard work that goes into what we do. It's not easy. And he said, but he handed me a book called The Servant. And it was a book by the gentleman by the name of Jim Hunt, who's actually at Detroit. And he wrote the book The Servant, which is about parable about a gentleman that has kind of lost his way both personally and professionally, and in this fable they just go through an awakening where we turn the focus from ourselves to the world around us, and then if we can identify and meet legitimate needs, we're going to have a healthy organization. If we have healthy relationships, if we have healthy relationships, that's going to create a healthier organization. So servant leadership is all about identifying and meeting the needs, not the wants, of the legitimate needs of those people that are under your influence. And it's a very magnetic mindset. People are drawn to it if you're authentic and you're consistent and you're selfless and you're patient and you're humble and you're committed. If you do all of that stuff, people will be drawn to you. And that I was drawn to that. And so I started to read books on servant leadership. I had never heard of it before. And going through The Servant, I was probably halfway through the book. And I said, every organization that I'm a part of, we're going to do our best to become more like a servant-led organization, knowing that you never arrive. And we haven't. But I know where Dave Scogan, my mentor, said, you're never where you want to be, but you're better than you used to be.
Yeah.
And that's one of Dave's pieces of wisdom. And now Dave's into his mid 80s and retired happily. But that was how I stepped into servant leadership, and eventually I started to teach it.
That's fantastic. And you know, it's servant leadership. You hear the buzzword a lot now, and people will use it as a catchphrase. But when you get back to it, I'm a firm believer that it is really, if you really want to be an impactful leader, it comes back to the tenets and the principles of servant leadership, being a servant first. And they're tenets and principles that have existed for, over 2,000 years, and they work. And you could call it a lot of different names, but it's about, all the things that you listed: being humble, being patient, caring, deeply caring about the people that you're trying to lead, and leaning in, and putting the good of others ahead of your own interest. And that's not only is it effective, but it's time tested and proven. And so what a wonderful journey to arrive at that for you, reading this book that was handed to you, and then that being an awakening in you, and now a thriving practice for you. You're also, as I mentioned at the top, like myself, we're both EOS implementers and coaches. So we work with businesses on the EOS, on the Entrepreneurial Operating System, on how to get healthy and get traction and alignment of vision in your business. How does that tie in, and how did that come about, and how does it tie into your servant leadership?
Yeah, absolutely, Mike. So the servant leadership thing, one of the things I struggled with was, what do I want to do next? I turned 55 years old, and I'm like, I didn't know what the next chapter of my life was. And I had been doing servant leadership workshops. I would do some keynotes, and I would do some training of some different units. But what I really lacked was a proven process. Everything I had done, it was magnetic, but every journey was so unique, and I really felt like it was lacking impact and transformation. And in 2019, a gentleman locally here in the Fox Valley, Appleton, Green Bay, Wisconsin area, he said, "Hey, I had just given a servant leadership workshop to him and his team. They really liked it." And he said, "Hey, did you ever hear this thing called EOS?" I said, "No, I never heard of it." He says, "Yeah, there's this book Traction, and these things called rocks." And man, he said, "We started it. It really feels right." I said, "Well, keep me in the loop, let me know." And he had said, "Boy, we're really starting, excuse the pun, but he said, we're really starting to get traction. This is a $5 million construction company, basement repair, wet basement group, right?
Hmm.
And they're $5 million. They're breaking even, and at best, a lot of high turnover. They didn't have money for new equipment or to reinvest in much of anything. They go all in on servant leadership, and one of the pieces of servant leadership, of EOS, I apologize. They go all in on EOS, and they talk about the vision component and followed by all. And these guys have taken that gives it the absolute teeth in your vision component. It's not just a few words on the wall. We're going to live this. And I saw that commitment. And then they start to get healthier and get the right people in the right seats. And then all the other key components of the EOS model really start to take shape. Well, this last year, 2023, they booked $20 million.
Wow.
And their pre-tax net profits over 11%. From a company that was making nothing. So I'm watching this transformation occur, and I thought, man, I love servant leadership, and it's a backbone to right people in the right seats, absolutely. But I did not have the capacity to deliver anything with that type of process. So
Yeah.
that type of proven process. So for me, that was the awakening. I said, I can't. I've been an entrepreneur for 30 years, but I just didn't feel comfortable that I could ever deliver those type of consistent results and stuff you can build on. And when I look at my friend, the contractor, he said, how are your days and nights? Are you going crazy? He said, when I have the right people in the right seats, I have the confidence in them. I can let go of more. So he
Yeah.
really, really bought into the delegate and elevate part of the EOS process, which says, we get people lined up with their God-given skills and abilities, and we get the heck out of their way. So when I saw that, I'm like, well, I got to dig more into this EOS thing. And that was really about, an earnest effort, probably maybe 18 months ago. And I started to do research, and I said, I got to go all in on this. And my first my boot camp was back in November when I met you in Detroit.
Yeah, that's amazing. And those real world examples, and there's thousands of them. And I think I shared with you that your friend's story was similar to my own with my business. Growing entrepreneurial company grew like 10x. With all the growth and the accolades and the awards and all that stuff came chaos and dysfunction and frustration until we found EOS. And those 6 key components, EOS is just that comprehensive system that pulls them together, right? It's the glue that pulls them together and says to your friend or to somebody like me, here's a comprehensive system that if you work at it, you can get healthy and strong. And all this stuff you talked about, alignment of vision, right people in the right seats, data, identifying, solving issues, building process, and gaining traction. And then you can get that payoff, which he talked about, which is no, I'm not going crazy. I feel like I'm living my best life. I feel like I'm no longer owned by my business, right? I'm no longer,
Right.
the old saying, you own a business, you wanted to own a business and the business ended up owning you. You don't want to feel that anymore, right? You want to feel like you own the business and the business has its own momentum. So that's such a great story. And that led you to where you are today, and you're coaching businesses in the Appleton, Green Bay area. Is that your geography?
Yeah, I'm staying pretty close to that. I have a session room in Appleton. So really from Green Bay to Oshkosh. So Northeast Wisconsin is really going to be my sweet spot. And I made a commitment to my family that I'm not going to do much traveling.
Yeah.
So I hope I can get most of my clients, within an hour, and we can, figure it out from there.
So another question I have for you, Pat. So I'm curious how EOS, when you found EOS, and it all kind of clicked for you. All your entrepreneurial background, all your business background, and this was like, okay, this is the comprehensive glue. And the servant leadership component is incredibly consistent with servant leadership. It's well interwoven throughout EOS. When you got that and you started coaching it and you went through boot camp and you became a professional implementer, how did that impact you personally? Like what impact did that have on you? Are there aspects of EOS that you took away and went, okay, for me, either in my personal life or and how I run my practice and my consulting business, what were some of the impacts there?
Uh, I honestly felt coming out of boot camp, and you get hit with a big fire hose because those people that are listening out there, the model's very simple, yet it's very deep. And when you look at it in its entirety, for me, I felt I could deliver sustainable, transformational stuff. Prior, I just didn't know if I was doing that. I've seen even great authors and speakers, and 6 months later, 9 months later, what did that guy say again?
Yeah.
And you're kind of trying to grasp at that nugget. And that's not knocking any of my peers or any of those people out there that are, on the keynote circuit, because they can certainly deliver. But I just wanted something that I knew I was making a transformational impact. Now they got to be all in on EOS. Uh, I've got to teach it purely. They've got to be all in on EOS. And what I like to say in a very positive tone is there's nowhere to hide.
Yeah.
If I teach this purely and you go all and followed by all, shared by all, and there's nowhere to hide. And that's not a negative. It's
No,
not
that's
like
a
you're
good
out
thing.
looking. Really is, and people love it when they know the expectations, they know the score of the game, they're being celebrated, and sometimes we got to close the door and we got to have tough conversations too. But I did not have that. So for me, the aha and the big deep breath was, I have something that I know is a proven process, as opposed to me, and I hate the term, but hodgepodging it together and
No, I know
taking that
what you
shotgun
mean. It
approach.
it creates sustainability. And the other big thing, we're almost out of time, but the other big thing that you mentioned, which is so critically important, is the transparency within an organization. Every organization wants that transparency, that clarity, that no place to hide. However you phrase it, it's the transparency and the secrecy that kills companies. That's what kills culture. And this system does kind of peel that away and and leave no place to hide, for lack of a better term. Hey, last question before I let you go. I always like to ask my guests this question. Is there a movie scene or a poem or a song? What gets you fired up when you need to get motivated, or when you've been motivated recently? Is there something you can point to that either just kind of gets you fired up or gets you motivated? Something that you go to?
I saw that in our notes heading into this. I don't know if I'll have anything.
Or a style. You listen to music for.
Bob Chapman wrote the book Everybody Matters. I don't know if you know of that.
Heard of it.
So Bob Chapman wrote the book Everybody Matters. The Barry Wehmiller Company, they own 140 companies worldwide. And Bob said, amongst many brilliant things, he said, if you're a business leader, he says, my challenge to you will be this, that if you can align fun with the value that you're trying to create, and I don't care if you're in real estate, a mini golf course, you're selling chicken and old fashions, or you're an EOS implementer. If we can align fun with the value that we're trying to create as an organization, that's another piece that's very magnetic. And that's not a poem or a song, but like, I honestly believe when I'm delivering EOS in my sessions and I'm working with my partners in our little organizations, we like to have fun. And how can we align fun with the value that we're trying to create? It is sustainable. It's a difference maker. And that's where we like to start. We know the tough conversations are out there too, but let's try to have fun while we're doing it.
That is absolutely perfect. I love that. You make sure you put the fun in it. Make sure you put the fun in everything you're doing. Get that aligned. It's a critical element. How do folks reach you, Pat, if they want to get a hold of you? What's your website?
So you can go to servantcultures.com, or you can find me at the EOS Worldwide website. What is that? I know you know that.
Probably EOS Worldwide /Pat Van Abel. We'll put it in the
EOSworldwide.com/Pat, and the Dutch call it Van Abel.
Van Abel. Okay.
Van Abel.
Sorry about that.
It looks like Abel, but yeah, VANABEL, or servantcultures.com.
Awesome. And we'll put all that in the link. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Pat, thank you. Pat Van Abel, thank you very much for being on the program. We're going to catch you next time on Getting a Grip.